So a lot of people have asked me questions about what happens in the grading room. It seems like a very mysterious place for people who haven't been inside of one.
We have to give credit where credit's due. We're going to have the person answer this who's been in the grading room for 30 years. And I just want to say something. For 30 years, we've had one person in the grading room, the Rock of Gibraltar, one of the greatest graders of all time, respected by all of his peers. So the three of us would like to thank Gordon Wrubel for all he does. He's 72 years old, and he's still got one of the best eyes in the business. He's there every day. I'm sure he can tell you, Steve, what happens in the grading room.
Well, first of all, a long time ago, because we had to block out the windows because the sunlight interfered with our looking at the coins under high intensity, it became known as the mole hole. And it's still known as that today because there are no windows. So it is dark, it is mysterious. When guests come to see what it's like, you know, it's like, oh, you know, everybody's got their light over their station, but there's no overhead lights, so it's dark. And very mysterious. And here's these guys sitting there looking at the coin and then punching something into their computer, punching their grade in. So I can see how an outsider who's never experienced it would find it almost odd.
We've got some scary stuff for collectors.
No. One more thing that collectors can have confidence, okay? And, you know, Steve, you're an outstanding expert on coins, and you have a great grading eye. And I'm sure you can relate to this. And when did you start looking at coins? What were you, like 8 years old or something?
Yep, like almost probably all you guys.
It's like if you go to a specialist, a doctor, and he looks at whatever, maybe he's a knee guy, he looks at your x-ray. It's not the first x-ray that he's looked at. And you have to realize that Gordon, before the grading room, before PCGS started, you know, was flying to Europe and buying gold coins and had probably looked at, you know, 100,000 1924 St. Gaudens. You know, when you look at it so much, it's like we have a thing called Meet the Expert at this Long Beach coin show, and the public and the dealers come up and show me coins and ask opinions, and I'm usually very abrupt with dealers. Come on, you're a pro, you're asking me what to do, you're a coin dealer. But very nice to the public and patient. But one guy kind of got under my, hands me a 2.5 Indian, and I go, it's counterfeit. And he went, Mr. Hall, could you look a little closer? So I pulled out my glass and I went, it's counterfeit. And then he, you know, maybe I was being a little abrupt, but he was, you know, how can you be sure? And all I could say, and I probably wasn't nice enough, was, you go out there and look at 10,000 2.5 Indians and then come back and we'll talk about it. Okay, so, and I know you know this, Steve, because you're a great grader yourself. If you look at a Morgan dollar, and some people say, oh, you only take 2 seconds to grade it. Yeah? Okay, unless there's some little problem, or you see, or maybe it's a 93S or 89cc, you want to look a little closer. I mean, if I show him a John Dannreuther, the Morgan dollar from here, he can probably get at 20 feet, he can probably get the grade right 98% of the time. And again, I'm sure you know, as you look at so many coins, you just know what it is. Same with counterfeits. Now, it's a little game we play with the counterfeiters. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like they go here, we go there, they go here, they go there. And the important thing that made us different was we guarantee the product. Okay. So a lot of people go, well, how do I avoid the counterfeit issue? Well, it's real simple. You buy, reputable third-party graded coins, and you buy from reputable dealers. In fact, the only time I've ever written for Coin World, I wrote a column, The Solution to the Counterfeit Problem. If your readers are worried about counterfeits, all they have to do is look. If you buy from a Heritage auction or a Goldberg auction, Stack's Bowers, Laura's auction, whatever, you don't have to worry. If you buy from a reputable PCGS authorized dealer, if you buy from a reputable grading service coins, you're not going to have to worry. These people stand behind the product. And a PCGS, the grading service, stands behind the product. If you go and buy raw coins, okay, and I believe I use the example, and this is a true story. We do not guarantee counterfeit coins, counterfeit holders any more than Rolex guarantees or Tiffany guarantees counterfeit products. So, but a guy calls us up and says, I bought these dollars, they turned out to be counterfeits, and the holders were sawed in half and glued back together, and we go, what can we say? Rolex doesn't guarantee, but can you just explain a little bit about the transaction? We're just kind of curious. And he says, well, I saw the coins on Craigslist, I met him in an airport, and I paid him cash.
Airport parking lot.
Airport parking lot. Okay, so it's like, didn't that give you a little pause?
No red flags there.
He says, well, yeah, but the price was cheap. Okay, so if your readers are concerned about counterfeits, okay, nothing against Craigslist, but, you should buy from reputable dealers, grading service coins, and if you ever, unlikely event you have a problem, it'll be taken care of. If you want to buy from some of these raw coins or even coins and holders, because they counterfeit the holders too, okay, you're standing as much a chance as if you buy a Rolex on Canal Street in New York, okay?
New Orleans.
So there's a Canal Street in New York.
Is there? Okay.
Yes, and it's the same as Canal Street in New Orleans. Anyway, so for your readers, the counterfeit problem is easy. Buy from reputable dealers, and buy third-party graded stuff.
That's the same in all collectibles, by the way. David and I collect a wide variety of things. I collect art. I went to 2 or 3 great art dealers. I collect pottery. I went to one guy that I think is the best in pottery. I mean, you collect different things and you go to specialists. There's no free lunches. You're not going to go buy something wholesale. You have to pay what the going market is for great things. People think they can save 20% or 10% or whatever buying it on Craigslist. This is what happens.
So with counterfeits, it's very black and white. A coin is counterfeit or it's not. But a lot of our readers had questions about questionable toning, artificial toning. Do you have any hints or tricks that people can use to detect that?
30 years of looking at 30 million coins.
Well,
It's like a refinished piece of art or a refinished antique firearm or something else. You just look at enough of them, pretty soon you learn.
Here at each Long Beach show, there's a Heritage auction, and they have lot viewing, and I'm sure you've looked at the coins. And there's no charge to look at the coins. In fact, they'll let you look all day if you fill out the little card with your email address on it, okay? So look at some coins. Look at coins that have been graded by PCGS and look at the toning. Now, the way where we're giving credit where credit due, here over on the left, John Dannreuther, perhaps the greatest technical coin mind in the history of numismatics. He can probably, when he looks at a 2.5 Indian, he'll tell you the technical reasons. For me, it's just it doesn't look right, okay? So he may have some technical answers about artificial toning. The way I tell is I try to remember, while I still have a mind left, what toning looked like when I was 22 years old. And if I see some colors that I didn't see when I was 25 years old and handling, tens of thousands of toned Morgans a year, okay, if there's a different color, then it's like, wait a minute, how can this be possible? And we have, there's a great tone story. When PCGS first started, they called me down to the grading room. There's about 20 Washington Carver halves that were all green, all exactly the same weird green color, which I had never seen, and everybody in the grading room thought it was artificial toning. So, well, gee, what should we do? Should we body bag the whole order? I go, yeah, this guy sent them in. They're AD them all. So we did, and we sent them back. 4 months later, they called me down to the grading room, and there's 20 Washington Carver halves, all this weird blue toning. So I guess they tried green, it didn't work, then they tried blue. But let's let John talk about some of how to do it. But again, for your readers, if they're worried, buy from reputable dealers, buy PCGS coins or third-party coins.
Well, toning has obviously been a big issue like counterfeits, but when we see an original coin, like David said, he knows what those coins looked like 20 years ago, 30 years ago. So there's really not a problem with original color because it lies on the coin in a particular way. And that's just like a counterfeit gold coin just by looking at it. The same thing is true with original color. I don't like to call it artificial toning because it's not really artificial. All toning is natural toning. What happens is we call it second toning. A lot of times in the grading room, if a coin's totally original, we all know it. We look at it and go, boy, that's just perfect. It's got beautiful, it's lying, and everybody can tell that. The second toning coins, we divide into two categories. Second, natural toning over a long period of time. And that, it doesn't go into the coin like the original toning does, but it looks different than the artificial color. Like the coins he's talking about, the green, we call that the New Spring line when it came out. Because I knew who was doing it. I knew the dealer that was toning the coins, and I knew how he did it and everything. And what happens is when you tone a coin over a short period of time, it floats on the surface. So the graders will look at a coin, and in fact, toning is of a funny color or it floats. They call it questionable color because there can be original coins that take 20 or 30 years to tone like that, but most of the time that's a short period of time that the coin has been toned. And it floats, it looks different. It's very difficult to describe. It's like I try to tell people, they said, how do you know this coin's a proof? Well, it's got the watery look. And they said, well, what are you talking about? Well, it's something that the difference in a DMPL dollar and a proof, the DMPL dollar has a certain look, the proof has a watery look. And it's very difficult to verbalize, but we know what it is. And so, the same thing is true with the artificial color versus second toning. Second toning, natural second toning, we'll grade the coin. I mean, unless it's just horrible looking, sometimes the toning's so ugly that they'll no grade it for that, or actually, I guess, net grade it. But
it depends. We do have a environmental damage. If it's so crusty and dug into the surface, then it's not ruins the coin, but kind of ruins the coin.
Well, John, that brings up a great question that somebody asked. We had a lot of very specific questions, but one involved 1907 St. Gaudens high relief gold. And PCGS differs from another grading service in calling them proofs. A reader asked, what's the reality about the high relief 1907 proof gold? Do proofs really exist?
You ready for this? Go ahead, JD.
I'm going to make it short because I could talk for an hour. Roger Burdett has actually done all the research on this. If you go back and read his books about it, they did not make proof high reliefs. What they did is they struck them several times, but the coins that have been called proof use a collar that was used on the ultra high reliefs. So they're using that as their diagnostic, as the main diagnostic. I've suggested to David that we call the coins mint state, give them an MS grade, and note that the collar is the ultra high relief collar. So that would distinguish these early strikes with all this swirling die polish. They did not strike them as proofs, although in doing research, Waldo Newcomer bought from the Charles Barber estate several pattern high reliefs with different curvatures and paid $50 a piece for them in 1917. Those coins have never been identified, those technically, I guess you could call, since they're patterns, would be proofs, but nobody's ever seen these coins. If we have, we didn't recognize them. But the ultra high relief edge is an interesting variety, and that's what, if we do decide to recognize it, we'll recognize it as a variety. And I believe only the flat rim high reliefs use that ultra high relief edge. So it's possible in the future we could recognize them as a distinct variety, but grade them mint stamp.
That's the great technician's answer. I'll be more blunt. We don't call them proofs because we don't think they're proofs.
Fair enough.